introduce you to the World Alliance for Microcredentials. Oonagh, with me, is director of the World Alliance for Microcredentials Foundation, established in the Netherlands. So she will go through presenting the activities that we do and eventually invite everyone to join this not-for-profit foundation, while I would like to focus on one of the first questions that Ivana introduced at the beginning of this webinar, which is why microcredentials are so relevant. So let me share this slide where basically I'm presenting a publication made by some colleagues within EfVET. EfVET is a network of training providers based in Brussels with over 2,000 training centers in 30 countries. And we have some working groups, and one of these working groups was focused on future-proof bed provisions. And they looked at something that sometimes is not very much focused, which is what are the emerging business models in vocational education and training. So they depicted 4 scenarios. So the first one is the business as usual, where basically bed providers work on funding, which is mainly from public source and is mainly focused on degrees. So then they identify different levels. So you go more on demand, content, industry driven, short, modular, still funded by public authorities, or instead you go more on commercial elements that are still degree based. And the next scenario, the one that eventually is a little bit scary in a way for bed providers, is some global actors that are offering on-demand courses and on the market without any limitations eventually related to public funding. So the next slide is in fact not very updated. It looks at the scope of work of LinkedIn in 2022. So it's not updated, but actually it's the timing when the European Council issued the recommendation on microcredentials. As Isabel was saying, this is a process that was already in place before, well before. So in 2 years ago, LinkedIn had already 12 million learners across the globe. And basically, not any vet provider can have this kind of market share. So we need to reflect on this, and we believe that microcredentials can help us as training providers to actually become more agile, more flexible, more inclusive, and more linked to industry-driven demands. So we have a nice definition of microcredentials, which is the definition of the European Council recommendation, which has a number of nice elements. For instance, that is based on learning outcomes, that is based on competencies, that is not limited to formal education, but also includes non-formal and informal learning environments. All learning counts. So, sometimes these working groups issue yet another definition of microcredentials. We would like to avoid this because a new definition will not be the best one, will just be another one. So we have already a very good definition that empowers us to have a very proactive and positive approach towards microcredentials. And in terms of challenges, if you are looking for challenges, here you have plenty. These are 10 dimensions that the European Council recommendation is inviting us as training providers to consider. And behind each of these points, you have some pedagogical challenges, organizational challenges, business model challenges. So in order to discuss and find solutions for against these challenges, and also, as you know, behind the challenge, there is an opportunity, as I was saying earlier on, we established an international scientific committee, which is now under this World Alliance for Microcredentials Foundation, is called the Advisory Board, which is nice because it welcomes people from academia, from training providers, from public authorities, national qualification agencies across Europe, experts in technologies, for instance, metaverse, how can you use metaverse to integrate and develop skills, how you use blockchain, how you use AI to support this process. And to refer to a previous question received before, it also incorporates members from around the globe. So the beauty of this working group is that in these countries, Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia, there is a legal base on micro-credentials. Market recognize the value of micro-credentials. So we started a process of learning from each other, discussing from each other. And this is the main purpose of the World Alliance for Micro-Credentials, which my colleague Oonagh will describe even more. I would just like very quickly to give our graphic representation of micro-credentials. This is old-fashioned school model. And if you introduce micro-credentials, you have something like this. So you have still the building blocks, the foundational skills related to your degree, but also with micro-credential, you have a more granular approach. You have a more specific ad hoc focus on skills. And last but not least, emerging from the discussions within our working group, we see a great opportunity around micro-credentials to eventually reshape and modernize our training provisions, but we see also a risk. If we don't see micro-credentials as skill-based, if we don't make the effort to reference to overall qualification framework, if we don't integrate quality framework with a rigorous evidence-based assessment of the skills, validation and certification of skills, then we believe we miss a great opportunity. So I will skip these slides, which will be shared because otherwise I'm conscious about time and Ivana will start screaming at me. And I would like to pass the floor to my colleague Oonagh to introduce the WAM activities.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me okay. Can you hear me, Ivana?
Can you hear Oonagh?
We not so good.
No.
Maybe Stefano, if you can share indeed.
Yeah, okay. How's that? Is that better? Okay, so I'm going to take you through the World Alliance for Micro-Credentials. We are a foundation, a not-for-profit, and we're based in the Netherlands. And we have a key function, which is to really bring experts and enthusiasts together in the realm of micro-credentials. Our activity base is around research and development, policy and advocacy, standards and certification, and capacity and capability building. Thank you, Stefano, for moving the slide. So in looking at the standards and certification, we're keen to understand how we might be able to support becoming either an awarding or an endorsing body. Given that we have a global scope, we have the opportunity to bring a sense of standardization or at least a sense of commonality around those standards together, and we can share them more easily. Within that, we would look at quality frameworking, international standards. Obviously, we are a world alliance, so we are both global and international. Looking at service operations as well, how we can support people with consultancy, advice and guidance, and also, very importantly, understanding what are the technical specifications around platforms and hardware and software that you need to be able to expedite the creation, issuing, and quality assurance of micro-credentials. We also have aspirations to become a research and development hub. So we don't wish to take over any other territory. Rather, we wish to bring all of those ideas together in one place in different formats, possibly a journal, collection of thought pieces, positioning papers, looking at specifically end user cases, the systemic perspective of micro-credentials, publications that we've mentioned, and really importantly, evaluation of impact. So that's one of the areas we're keen to grow in. Just an example there of a piece of work done by one of our advisory board members who's actually completing his professional doctorate in leveraging micro-credentials. So this is one of the chapters that he published, really interesting about the views on whether they're innovative or disruptive, or are they really what they say they are. Okay, so if we move to the next one, we can see our membership structure. We have workshops and masterclasses. We have opportunities for networking and collaboration. We're running our aptly named webinar series, so we'd invite you all to join. They're free to join. Advice and guidance as well. So again, in that possibly in that consultancy space, or certainly guiding newcomers into the field and connecting those experts within our realm who can help each other, maximizing time, maximizing resource, engaging with outputs. And finally here we have an example of one of those webinars that we ran recently, which was very well attended by some of you here as well. I know, I recognize you. So thank you very much for joining. We felt very honored to have many of you there. you're very welcome to join them. We tend to run them once a month towards the third week of the month, and we have a full calendar event published on our website. So within the policy and advocacy, we can see that we're looking at that observation piece, helping people to bring their thoughts together and possibly not necessarily have a lobbying voice, but certainly one that's collectivized, looking at structured dialogue where we can be part of that dialogue from the learnings of our own people, and also having that ecosystem around infrastructure. So connecting the users of infrastructure for the very reasons that we talked about, being democratic, being inclusive, and helping people to maximize that precious resource that they have. So if you'd like to join our movement, you can just pop into your browser wham.foundation and you should find us. You can send us a little note and we'll add you to our mailing list.